Werechat ha'ashara anat melecha ha'olam asher kedeshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivani l'hitati v'tzitzit. Good morning, Corbin. Shema Yisrael Asher Eloheinu Yahweh Echad. ואהבת את ענת אלוהיך ובכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך וחיו הדברים האלה אשר נוחי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ולכתך ובדרך ובשכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאוהות על ידיך וחיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך וחיה כי הביאך אלוהיך אל הארץ אשר נשבע לאבותיך לאברהם ליצחק וליעקב לתת לך ערים גדולות וטובות אשר לא בנית ובתים מלאים כל טובה אשר לא מילאת ובורות עצובים אשר לא עשת כערים וזיתים אשר לא נטעת והלכת ושבת הישמר לך פן תשכח את יהוה אשר תישאך מארץ מצרים מבית עבדים. Listen, Israel. Listen, nation of El, you who struggles with God. Yahweh Eloheinu Asher Echad. All of these gods are one, and you shall love them. That plurality that is unity. You shall love Yahweh Eloheinu with all your heart and all your soul and all your might. And these words, which I am repeating to you right now, teach them to your children. And say them when you wake up in the morning and you go to bed at night, when you are out on the road and when you are at home. And inscribe them as a symbol on your hand. Let them serve as a sign on your forehead. And mark them on the doorposts of your houses and on your gates. And when Yahweh Eloheinu brings you into the land that he swore to your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to assign to you, great and flourishing cities that you did not build, houses full of all good things that you did not fill, hewn cisterns that you did not hew, vineyards and olive groves that you did not plant, and you eat your fill, take heed that you do not forget Yahweh, who freed you from the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. So, today, where are we at today? Today we're going to continue to read from the Enuma Elish. Enuma Elish is this Babylonian creation myth. And where we left off yesterday, there was about to be a war between the hosts of Tiamat, the original creator divinity, and her grandsons. And they're about to fight. There's going to be a battle. Are you ready? Anshar heard every word and found the news distressful. How awful, were his first words, afterwards biting his lip. And he was filled inside with anxiety, his muscles tightened. Yet the outburst at his son Ea proved anything but feeble. Son, you began this conflict, so you are responsible for it. For you went forth and killed Apsu, making Tiamat mad. Having done so, need we look any further for her enemy? The Lord of Prudence, source of wisdom, unsure what to do, Nudimund, with allaying words, replied to Anshar, Oh, my great father, incomprehensibly do you set destinies. holding in yourself the powers of creation and destruction. O Anshar, incomprehensibly do you determine destinies, holding in yourself powers of creation and destruction. Please refrain from interrupting while I speak, as I intend to, and keep in mind that my actions were right and justified. For before I killed Apsu, who was there for him to rely upon? Whereas now there has emerged this assortment of demons, and before I could even approach and defeat him, Kingu, he would already have annihilated me. And what then? Anshar heard every word, and they were agreeable to him, and he was motivated thereby to speak to Ea, saying to him, Yes, son, your deeds were without doubt praiseworthy. You can initiate your own attack, strong and determined. Ea, indeed, your deeds were without doubt praiseworthy. You can initiate your own attack, strong and determined. Go out and confront Tiamat. Bring an end to her rebellion. May we pray only that her rage will subside from your spell. And he heard the words spoken by his grandfather Anshar, and then he went up the roadway, veering neither right nor left. Ea continued on, keeping a lookout for Tiamat's battle lines, but he did not make his voice heard, and instead returned. He went before Anshar the king, and humbly beseeched him, Father, the ways of Tiamat are far too potent for me to handle. I went in search of her root, but my spell was inferior to hers. She holds powers that are alarming. She is utterly horrific. The forces about her are supreme. None could stand against her. Her great din never subsides, being too much for me to take. Her voice struck me with terror so much that I headed back. Yet do not refrain, father. Rather dispatch another against her. No matter how strong a woman, still she cannot equal a man. Right? This is the story about the origin of patriarchy. No matter how strong a woman, she cannot equal a man, thereby dispersing her legions and confounding her orders. This you must do before she will overwhelm us with her powers. So, father and son talk about the war that they are waging. And the father says, Son, you started this war, you better finish it. And the son says, But I can't. She's too powerful. You must elevate another. So, we will see, soon enough, the elevation of the guard Marduk. Although, yes, Marduk shows up on the next page. So we'll get to Marduk tomorrow. But for now, that is enough of the Enuma Elish, Babylonian creation myth. And we can move on to Arati. No, I'm perfectly healthy, Saul. Are you responding to my lowered voice? It's just a voice I put on when I'm telling stories. Normally I sound like this. So, next we have Arati. The word Arati means flame in Sanskrit. And perhaps it means light. Here we have our light right here. We can continue on. Jaya Jaya Arati Vina Vinayaka Vina Vinayaka Shri Ganesha Jaya Jaya Arati Subramanya Subramanya Kartikeya Jaya Jaya Arati Venugopala Venugopala Venuola Papa Vidura Navanita Chora Jaya Jaya Arati Venkanta Ramana Venkanta Ramana Sankata Harana Sita Rama Radhe Shama Jaya Jaya Arati Gauri Manohara Gauri Manohara Bhavani Sankara Samba Sadashiva Uma Maheshwara Jaya Jaya Arati Raja Rajeshwari Raja Rajeshwari Tripura Sundari Mahalakshmi Mahasaraswati Mahakali Mahashakti Jaya Jaya Arati Anjaneya Anjaneya Hanumanta Jaya Jaya Arati Dattatreya Dattatreya Trimutriya Vatara Jaya Jaya Arati Adityaya Adityaya Bhaskaraya Jaya Jaya Arati Sanistaraya Sanistaraya Bhaskaraya Jaya Jaya Arati Sankarachaya Sankarachaya Advaita Guravi Jaya Jayarvatiya Sadgurunata Sadgurunata Shivananda Jaya Jayarvati Vishnu Devananda Vishnu Devananda Vishnu Devananda Jaya Jayarvati Agastya Munaye Agastya Munaye Shriyama Priyaye Jaya Jayarvati Ayappa Swamine Dharma Shastave Jaya Jayarvati Jesus Gurave Moses Gurave Buddha Gurave Jaya Jayarvati Muhammad Gurave Guru Nanak Gurave Samastya Gurubho Namaha Jaya Jayarvati Venugopala. Natatra Suyobati Natanjakaratam Nema Vidyobati Kutayamagni Twameva Bantam Banti Sarvam Tasya Basya Samritam Vivanti Om Gange Kayamune Kaiva Govari Saraswati Narmade Siddhikaveri Hiya Namastitam Namo Namaha Twameva Mata Trapita Twameva Twameva Bandisha Saka Twameva Twameva Vidya Travinam Twameva Twameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Kayena Vacha Manasendriyarva Budyat Manava Prakrite Sabhavad Karomi Adyad Mangalam Parasmahi Narayana Iti Sarmar Payami Sarvadharmam Pravichayami Mikam Savarnambraja Aham Sva Sarva Papayo Mokshayami Masucha. Whatever actions I perform with my body, speech, mind, senses, my nature, my intellect, or my emotions, all these I dedicate to you. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate the sentiment, Lin Moon. I really do. Especially on a day like today when the stream is empty and full of trolls. It's nice to have that reassurance, because I come online every day with a tremendous amount of doubt that what I'm doing is valuable. So now we'll say Kaddish. Kaddish in mourning of all that we have lost, in acknowledgement of all of the suffering and grief that has pervaded the living world for as long as the living world has been alive. For the last 3.8 billion years, living creatures have been living and dying and suffering in between. And so we say Kaddish to remember them and to acknowledge our place in this saga of life and death. Yidkadal vidkadash shemeraba Biama divrachyote viamlich malchute Vachayachon of yomechon of chayed kolbe Israel Bagala visman kari vimr. Amen. Yehe shemeraba meva arach le'alam ome omaya Yidbarach vishtabach vitba'ar vitramam vitnase Vitadar vitale vitalal sheme de kudesha barichu Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata Diamiran biama vimr. Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'yachol Yisrael vimru. Amen. Ose shalom vimramav Huya ase shalom aleinu v'yachol Yisrael vimru. Amen. Ose shalom vimramav Huya ase shalom aleinu v'yachol Yisrael vimru. Vimru. Amen. Thank you so much for joining me today. Now it's time for a little bit of breakfast. Good morning, Danny girl. How are you? Nice to see you. So I'm going to go get some rice. And I'll be back in a minute or two, and we can chat for a bit. How does that sound? Danny girl, what are you up to today? Okay, I'll be right back. Bounce Mountain. Is that some amusement park kind of situation? Lots of trampolines and bouncy balls? Who is Charlotte? I don't think you've ever mentioned her to me by that name. It's a bouncy house thing. Charlotte is your daughter. Hi, Charlotte. She's 5. Well, I hope you have a very nice outing to Bounce Mountain. And that you fly high and well. Social media is a funny thing, isn't it? Gosh. What would it be like if I was 5 years old and was interacting with people on TikTok with my mother? I don't know what kind of person I would be. My mother showed me nothing about the internet. No, I don't think what you're doing is remotely irresponsible, right? Like, you are consuming media and you're enjoying it with your daughter, right? Like, I'm glad that you can do that, right? And I'm glad that I can have a relationship with you and with her by proxy. It's not bad. It's just maybe surreal, unusual. It's just not like my childhood, right? Like, when was the first parasocial relationship that I developed? Probably when I was like 19 or 20, right? That was when I first started like really paying attention to YouTube and admiring like the people that I met there. Like, the media landscape that I consumed when I was 5 or 10, like I watched television shows that were produced by companies, right? That had full-time staffs and animators and R&D departments and like editorial supervision and all this stuff. And that kind of content is just very different than like, oh, there's a trans woman on the internet. I like talking to her. So let's consume that media instead. I'm sure you watch TV as well, right? I'm sure she watches television. I just like don't know like what is media for? Why are we here? As we develop and parasocial relationships are like extremely normal, what kind of people does that make us? Like, it might make us better people. I don't know. It can be good to teach kindness, yeah. And maybe, I don't know, this is just conjecture, but like, it might be possible to teach kindness and compassion more effectively as a individual content creator, like just being a person on the internet, than it is to watch some fable, right? Pokemon fable, Teletubbies fable about kindness and respect. I mean, those kind of like high production value didactic stories, they're valuable too. I'm eating rice and bok choy and cashews and pancetta, although I just finished eating all of the pancetta because it was very good. So now it's just rice and bok choy and cashews. Oh no, there's still a little bit more pancetta. Good. Yemi, what do you mean when you use the word healthy? Because I get confused by that word. You call your mother Bok Choy. Why do you call your mother Bok Choy? That's a funny nickname. How did she come across that nickname? Not a lot of sugar and salt. You have high blood pressure. Well, I eat a lot of salt. There's a lot of salt in this meal. Pancetta is like preserved meat with lots of salt. So, bok choy. So when I use the word bok choy, I'm referring to a kind of cabbage that was developed in East Asia, China, I believe. Ah, bap chat. Interesting. When did your family come to the States? My mother was born in Hungary. I don't know if I've told you that before. My mother was a refugee. One of the many wars in Eastern Europe. So she came here in 1956. It's pork. Pork belly. Like you can also make bacon out of this cut, but instead of curing it the way you cure bacon, instead it's dry aged. So my partner added a bunch of salt and spices and then hung it in our basement in a pillowcase for 3 months, 4 months, and it's delicious. 3 generations ago, meaning your grandmother was the one who immigrated, or 3 generations meaning your daughter, you, and then your mother was the immigrant. You know, yeah, I mean, people assume a lot of things about me because of the way I eat, or because of the content that I make. Like, they assume I'm a lot more wholesome than I actually am. Good morning, Dr. Punk. How are you? Like, I do try to keep this stream child friendly, but there are plenty of things that I do that are nowhere close to that. There are plenty of things that I eat that are not very healthy. You're all wise and powerful, like Baal on Mount Zaphon. I adapt what I do to the audience that I have. Sometimes I have an audience of, like, obnoxious men. I behave differently when I have an audience of obnoxious men. What's my favorite guilty pleasure food? Um, Olivia, that's a perplexing question. I don't think I ever feel guilty when I eat food. Um, very deliberately. Like, I live on a farm. I dumpster dive. Like, so much of my life is dedicated to the acquisition and production and preparation and sharing of food. Um, there's nothing that I eat that I'm like, oh my god, I shouldn't be eating this, but it's so good. Um, no, that's not a framework that I. That's not a framework that I occupy. Well, there are things that I do that make me guilty. Um, right, like whenever I smoke marijuana, I feel really guilty about it. I've made videos about that, right? So like certainly I have vices. There are things in my life that make me uncomfortable, or like I have a tremendous amount of self-criticism. It's not that I don't have guilt, but I don't have any guilt around food. No. Good morning. Well, I actually think that I need to go. Just finished my breakfast. More people should strive for that relationship with food. I suppose so. It also, like, I'm not sure that more people should dedicate their entire lives to food production like me. Like, sometimes I feel kind of trapped by it, right? Because, like, the culture that I'm embedded in, like, we just talk about food all day long. That's all we do. Let's talk about food. Yes, we do grow vegetables in the greenhouse in the winter, Teresa. And we're building a new greenhouse. Right now, I can see it outside my window. Right? Constantly upgrading our food production capabilities. But it's a sacrifice, right? Like, if you are surrounded in a culture that thinks about food all the time, then you are not surrounded by people who think about other things. Sometimes I wish that I was. Yeah, it's exhausting. Alright, I'm gonna head out. But it was lovely chatting with you all. And I will see you again tomorrow, and we can say some words once more. Okay.